Well, welcome. Tonight we're going to explore a new area for the show. One of the people that quietly works behind the scenes, and generally you only hear about this office when there's a problem or when we have to spend large amounts of money. So why don't we start with an introduction?
Hi, thank you for having me on. I'm Vonnie Reese. I'm the town engineer and the department head for planning and engineering in Milford. Before coming to Milford, I worked for 25 years as a consultant, so I was on the other side of the fence. I have a bachelor's in civil engineering from Worcester Polytech and a master's in civil engineering from Northeastern. I'm a registered Massachusetts professional engineer, which is a requirement of this job position. I'm also owner's project manager certified by the state of Massachusetts, which means that large building projects, for example, the youth center, the town doesn't need to hire an independent OPM. I can serve in that position for the town. So it's been a good fit for me and my skills. My background is in construction of large water and wastewater facilities and collection systems. I've done a lot of planning studies, water resource work. So again, it's exciting to be here in Milford because stormwater is a big issue in Milford.
Yeah, too big of an issue.
And that's right up my alley. So I'm excited to be able to take on that challenge.
But isn't it hard? I mean, how often does a town build a new wastewater treatment center or a new set of pipes?
Well, it doesn't. The new wastewater treatment plant, generally, at this point, most of the plants were built in the 1970s. That's really when we became very aware of the fact that we couldn't dump our raw sewage into the lakes and rivers anymore. So they're all coming to the end of their useful life or beyond it at this point. So a lot of the work now is upgrades. There are some new plants being built in areas where there never was a plant. But Milford's plant, for example, is very well run, but I'm sure it occasionally needs to be evaluated for upgrades and ways to improve the process.
Because I would think once you build one, it's 40 years or 50 years later before you're going to rebuild it or something.
Right. But
ignore them. Mice.
But yes, big mice. But then, there are always improvements to the process and that type of thing that can happen. So back to my role as town engineer, I do not have anything to do with wastewater for the town of Milford. That is a separate department.
So you don't work with the sewer department, or is it informal?
We coordinate when we need to, informally, but no, John Manini runs the treatment plant and the sewer department very well, and he's doing a great job on his own. And I have enough to keep me busy also. So in addition to being the town engineer, I'm also the Title V septic system inspector and the conservation agent for the Conservation Commission. I review all the plans that come before the planning board and review everything that comes in front of the Conservation Commission. I do site inspections for subdivisions. I do site inspections for redevelopments. So they keep me busy.
When you say Title V inspector, is that when you sell your house, your septic system has to be to today's code?
Correct. So when only about 5% of Milford, 5 to 10% of Milford still has septic systems. Most of it is on sewer.
Where I live, we don't get sewer. I keep asking John Mainini, did you forget us? I laugh. Terry, the tax collector, remembers us. Could we have sewer someday?
Right. So typically when a house is sold, there's an inspection. If you don't meet the current code, then you have to upgrade or repair or replace your system. And that's where I come in. I go out and do two or three, depending on the type of repair it is, inspections. There are new developments being built right now in town that are going to be on septic systems as well, because they're in areas that don't have sewer. So.
Okay, so it's not just us. It's not John.
No, it's not just you.
Someone tell Debbie, tell John, give us sewer. And he just looks at me and says, Milford pink granite.
Yep.
Yeah, he just laughs. He says, Milford pink granite. And right away you know what it is.
Right, right.
But they ran water. How come they can't run a sewer pipe?
For the most part, sewer pipes run by gravity. So they're deeper, and in some places they're really deep. But the water pipe is only about 5 feet deep.
Okay.
Because it's not,
Plus it's
because it's pressurized, yeah.
I think we had 100 PSI at the foot of my driveway or something. Just amazed me.
Wow, that's a lot.
Because they had some kind of reducer. Because we're so far down compared to the water tank on Highland Street. It was just amazing when they told me, you know, they had to put a pressure reducer in.
That's a lot of pressure.
So you're looking at, when you look at the average house in Milford, and you go and inspect them for their septic system, what percentage actually, you know, it scares me when you say, my house was built 25 years ago, and now I have to meet current code. What are the odds it will?
The biggest factor in Milford is the soils and the level of the groundwater. If you've got good soils and the system has been properly maintained, it could conceivably pass. If you've got...
You don't seem real, it could conceivably pass.
Well, yeah, it depends on what they installed. You know, an old cesspool or an old leaching tank is not going to pass because those are not allowed anymore. So the new code
We had
is,
a tank, and then whatever they call it, the arms that go off the distribution.
right. So you have a septic tank and a leach field.
Yes.
Yeah, and that is more in line with the code. So as long as your leach field hasn't failed, your system would pass.
Well, what's new? I mean, you don't have a large tank in the distribution field?
Well, what happens is if you have poor soils over time, the voids get filled up with...
Well, I remember oatmeal. You get the oatmeal effect inside the pipes.
Right, and if people don't maintain their systems too, you get, you know, grease and other stuff going down the pipes and clogging up the pipes, and then they stop working.
But
So
when you say maintain, once a year I have the pooper scooper come out and do their, J.C. Parmenter shows up, goes away, and I'm happy.
that's all you have to do.
Oh, okay.
But a lot of people don't do that.
Okay.
A lot of people, I've heard so many people say to me, I don't understand why it failed. Like, I've had this system for 30 years and I've never done a thing to it. So
Oh, hello.
that's why.
Now, people say you can buy the enzymes. And I've heard as many people say it's good to throw them in as people say it's bad.
It's not, yeah, don't waste your money.
But is it harmful, or?
It's not going to improve the process.
Oh, okay.
So there's no point in doing it.
Yeah, because you see them advertised, you know, it eats up the poop faster or something, keeps your, no.
Yeah, no,
So we've learned, don't bother spending money on fancy enzymes.
correct. So
So your real job,
my real job.
not these
So
extras.
So yeah, the Board of Health thing is kind of a side job, and I don't have to deal with for the most part. I don't have to deal with the active system. I'm going out and checking, and when they dig the hole, make sure that the soils that they're installing the system in, the new system in, are appropriate soils, and that they'll leach.
Oh, so you actually go out on new developments to check it out?
And on repairs on existing houses.
Okay. That's good news.
So-
At least they do it right, because, I mean, let's face it, as a homeowner, how do I tell a good poop system from a bad one? I have no idea.
Right, right.
You know, I mean, they put a big tank there, and but it's got a little distribution box and a bunch of arms. It looks good to me. I wouldn't know good soil, good dirt from bad dirt. Okay.
So, but I have, since I've been here in Milford, it's been almost 3 years, I've had the opportunity to work on some really exciting projects, and I brought some pictures with me because I thought that would make it a little more interesting for everybody. And
Well, I think it's important because, you know, we heard that, you know, y'all fixed the culvert under Main Street. Nobody had a clue. I was amazed at how many people said, well, you mean you shut down the middle of town like Central Street? It's like, no, Fruit Street. That's still Main Street. But I don't
Well,
think,
we actually had traffic down to one lane on Main Street at one point, but it was very well managed.
must have been because we didn't hear any screams and
We
yells.
didn't really get a lot of complaints. It was nice. It was good. So the Main Street culvert actually goes under Main Street, and like you said, unless there's a problem,
Yeah.
people kind of don't know what we do. It's buried now, and I brought pictures of what it looked like as it was going in, but I mean, it was a pretty impressive
Even
project.
you hear O'Brien Brook, Godfrey Brook, and somebody says, what's the hospital brook? Well, it must be near the hospital because it's called hospital. But again, I don't think most people even have an idea of where some of the bridges are and why.
Well, the Godfrey Brook and the O'Brien Brook, there are, I don't even know how many crossings. It's probably hundreds of little crossings. They run through people's backyards. They run through the entire town. And Hospital Brook is a much smaller brook. It runs basically from the KC Pool area, Prospect Hill area, down. And right where we did the project on Main Street is where it
Yeah,
comes
runs
back
from
into the
Heights,
Godfrey Brook.
the pool at the Heights down to Main Street.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Well, let's look at the big projects.
Okay, let's look at the big projects. Let's see.
Can we have a new slide and a pretty picture?
So we'll talk about the Milford Youth Center first. This, as everybody knows, because it's been a much discussed project, and the funding was definitely discussed in depth. It's a $5 million renovation project.
So far.
It's a $5 million renovation project.
I'm going to wait till those little rooms that weren't done in a few years, we'll end up putting more money in.
Oh, but wait, I'll get to that.
Okay.
So these two pictures are from the beginning of the demolition. We took all of the walls, all of the interior down to the studs and the skeleton of the building. There was some, when we were doing design, we really looked at how many ways we could try to save money and try to economize, and so we intended to keep the old plaster on the walls. In the picture on the right, you can see there's beadboard on the lower part of the wall and plaster on the upper part of the wall, and this was typical of most of the rooms in the youth center. As soon as we started, though, cutting out windows and stuff like that, the old plaster just disintegrated. It was old. It was wet in places. It had been water damaged. It just
100 years
completely
old.
fell apart. Right.
I mean, when Paul Revere put it in, it probably was state of the art. It's been a while since he was around.
Yeah. So we pretty much stripped the inside of the building, and in doing so, we came across quite a few
Surprises.
unforeseen conditions, things that we that we somewhat anticipated, but we didn't know, to what extent they would need to be fixed. And luckily, we had a pretty healthy contingency already in our budget that helped us to cope with some of these things. And then we did some creative things also to make it work. So let's go to the next. One of the reasons that the cost of the building was so high is we had to make everything ADA compliant, which is great because now it's a fully compliant building. So we had to put in an elevator, which was a big ticket item. This is a picture on the left of them digging the elevator pit, or jackhammering, I should say. We ran into ledge.
Yeah, those jackhammers that Milford Pink Granite
Exactly.
seem to give interesting challenges.
Well, obviously we couldn't blast inside the building because we were inside a building, and we had concerns about the masonry and the structural stability. And so they cut the granite out by hand. Milford granite is pretty tough granite.
That's why everybody loved it.
Yeah, they were impressed. But and then the picture on the right is the elevator pit after the concrete has been poured. So it's about 6 feet deep. We did not we did soil borings prior to construction, and we thought that we would be okay on the ledge issue because the soil borings on the outside of the building showed that it was about 8 feet deep. But as we did our work, the ledge is much higher on the north side of the building and then kind of goes that way.
Yeah, we learned why the previous commander of the National Guard said, "You don't want this building, but we're glad to give it to you." You know, having a building that's sitting in the middle of a small river. I mean, I was amazed. I don't know if you can show pictures of the
I don't have
trenches.
I do. That's the next. That's the next slide.
Ah, there they are.
So, one of the big issues with this building was water, and in the basement was always damp and very often wet. As part of our design, we designed these trenches, which are designed to take in any groundwater that seeps up through the bottom of the building, direct it down to a pit or a manhole, where it gets pumped out by a sump pump and into the storm drain system. So these trenches we have 3 of these trenches. They're 30 inches deep by 84 feet long.
I was amazed when I saw the size of these things.
Yeah.
You know, and the size of the pumps to pump the water out of them.
Yep. We have 2 pumps in each manhole. So one's a redundant pump in case the other one dies. And so once they started pumping, some of the water came down, but we were still seeing water coming in the building. And so we started doing the site work, and the contractor discovered that none of the roof drains were actually connected into a discharge pipe that went to the stormwater system. The roof drains just went into the ground next to the foundation.
And went right under.
So that's why it was seeping in through the walls of the building.
It's like having gutters and no downspouts.
Right.
It just puts all the water right at your feet.
Right, exactly.
And then you wonder why your feet are wet. You know, it's funny, when we grew up, because, back when I was a kid, we used to play ball hockey in there. And you never could go downstairs, because that's where all the guns and so we never knew anything about, you know, the wetness and all, because it was just we could use the basketball courts to play ball hockey, but you couldn't go. Well, they lied to us and said the balcony. We found out later they just didn't want us up there. They said it was unsafe.
It probably was.
Well, I mean, I got to walk on it as an adult, so it couldn't have been too unsafe when I was, 30 years before. But we used to go down there all the time. We never got to go to the basement because it was always, there's guns down there and ammunition. So
well, they had in the basement they had a huge vault, which was the ammunition vault. The walls were 18 inches thick, concrete. The contractor had to jackhammer those out too. That was it was a massive bunker, basically, where they kept all the ammunition.
Well, if something ever went
right.
boom,
right.
you probably do want 1.5 foot thick cement to protect everything around it. Okay.
So these were the trench drains. When we realized what was going on with the roof drains and fixed that problem, the water became a little less. Windows and doors in the basement also, they all leaked.
Yeah.
So the water issue turned out to be more than just one thing. And once we got some of the site stuff under control and the doors and the windows and these trenches in, the pumps run, but not continuously. Last winter, they were running continuously until we really got a handle on things. But the system's working very well now. It's dry down there. It still feels a little humid, but it's not as damp as it used to be. It'll be much better.
Cool.
So,
I mean,
what's next?
That's a $5 million investment in our kids.
Yes. Yeah.
At the end of the day, we had these whole philosophical arguments, and it seemed like what it came down to is the kids that use the youth center were no more special or no less special than the kids who played football.
Right.
Football got a field. Soccer got a new pitch. Softball got a new softball field. So this was just another group of Milford kids that we took care of.
Well, the programs that the youth center now runs are incredible. They do an awful lot for the kids, and it's a safe place for the kids to go after school, keeps them off the streets. Yeah. But then once this is up and running, they're going to have even more programs, and it's going to be pretty amazing. They're going to be doing more, with computer classes and tutoring and sports programs, and we'll be.
It's gone a gamut. I mean, when you think of the full circle it's come around, maybe we were some of the at-risk kids and nobody ever told us when we were from Lights. We never knew we were from the bad side of town. Thank God nobody told us. But I grew up going there every week. When my daughters were of age, they went to dances there. Mm-hmm. And then we hit a point where one of the boards said, well, we don't want the typical kids, we only want at-risk kids. And Mark and I were two people who said, then I'll never vote to fund this place. Never in my life, until you make it inclusive of all Milford kids. I hate the idea of putting a label, these are at-risk kids. So what are you doing? You're not talking nice about them. I'd hate to do it. Then when this new board came in, the whole attitude changed. It was, this is for all Milford kids who want to take advantage of it. Mm-hmm. And that's when, you got a lot of us to say, okay, now it makes sense. Now we'll fight for funding. Because $5 million is a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
When I was a kid, you could have bought Milford for $5 million. Heck, they would have thrown in Hopedale. Oh, the floors, yes, the basketball floors.
So anyone who played basketball in the gym at any time knows that the gym floor was not level. It was not level at all. And part of the issue is the rot that you see here in the doorways. Part of the issue was once we started peeling back the top of the floor, we found areas where you could see there are no cross braces.
Yep.
And then the other issue was in the basement, we have those big thick masonry walls where the batting cages are. Over the years, between the masonry wall held the floor up, but between the masonry walls, the floor kind of sagged. So we had this wavy effect.
Well, I remember you'd shoot a pass across and it would hit one of the bumps.
Yeah.
And the ball's going nice and even and then whoop, up in the air. It's like, how did I make it do that? You couldn't take credit. It was the floor.
It was the floor. So we will have a brand new engineered athletic floor at the end of this. It will be beautiful.
Well, it's going to be soon.
It's going to be soon. It's going to be soon. They've already they've done the painting in the gym, so the windows are done, painting's all done. They're getting the doors in. The floor is going to be the very last thing. Yeah. So
okay,
it will be
what's
soon.
Next on the hit parade?
These are just some examples of the structural repairs we did. This is a huge header beam that we had to install. Some of the things that were done over the years when they had to make repairs were definitely not to code.
Yeah, bubble gum and Band-Aids.
And for example, under the bathroom in the mezzanine, the plumbers just cut the joists.
Oh, I love the support joists that were cut.
To put the pipes in, right.
Okay, so now we have a place to put the pipe, but the floor is going to collapse on the pipe.
Exactly. So when we started working, we found a lot of things that we did not expect to find that had to be fixed. And our contractor has done a great job and really did work with us to keep costs down as much as possible.
Cool.
What's the next one? The gym roof. The gym roof that was debated. It's not that old. Maybe we don't need to replace it. It needed to be replaced. I'm glad that we decided to do it, because especially with putting in a brand new floor, you don't want to run the risk of your roof leaking.
Yeah, I mean, talk about penny wise and pound foolish.
Right.
Let's not fix the biggest source that's going to ruin the floor.
Right.
Now, this is good.
And both of the roofs, actually, the flat roof and the slanted roof, needed to have repairs done.
Next one?
When we started doing work on the masonry, we thought we had a fair amount of repointing that had to be done. We discovered, you can see there's some huge voids here. At some point in time, somebody had decided that instead of repointing, they'd just use some caulking and fill those voids. And then, of course, the caulking shrank over time, and the caulking that didn't shrink trapped water behind there.
It, and then
so
it froze and expanded.
Yep. You can actually see the picture on the left. One of the stones is definitely like pushed over beyond where it should be. So the masonry was a big issue for us, to completely take apart the turrets and all the crenellations and put them back the way they were. It would have easily been $500,000.
I was going to say, but we lost the turrets, right?
So we did. Well, we didn't lose them completely. We rebuilt them, but they're a little bit shorter than they were before. And we took down the crenellations except around the turrets.
I think for $500,000, I can live with shorter turrets.
Well, everything we did ended up only costing $45,000. It was a much better price
That's what I'm
tag.
saying. Much better than $500,000. I don't need full turrets for $500,000.
And as a bonus, we, if we go to the next slide, I think it's the next slide. Nope, this is more. Those crenellations were used on the patio to make the new front stairs.
Okay.
So the
You get to
stone
reuse
matches
some of the stone.
perfectly. We had to reuse some of the stone on the entrance too, because every place that the exterior of the building was, even an inch below grade, they just had rubble. They didn't use the granite. The granite doesn't go all the way down.
Oh, God.
So we had to do some creative patching of the front. But these pictures are when they were doing the masonry work.
Next one.
Here's the finished flat roof with a new skylight, which was also another source of water into the building, the old one, and the cleaned and repointed masonry with our brand new windows.
Brand new windows.
Yep.
Next one.
We also did new utility services, new gas service, water service. That large structure in the right-hand picture is called a storm scepter unit, and it will clean the stormwater before it leaves the site.
Well, the gas helped too, because the cost of the generator dropped like a rock by going to a gas generator versus.
Yeah, and the building had gas service previously, but we needed a new meter and we needed to upgrade the service.
Yeah, our end of town doesn't get gas either. We have to have oil. Okay.
These are some of the site improvements that are still underway. New front walk, and the highway department helped us out with getting the site paved. So that was a way that we saved some money. And then the next slide shows the new front patio. So those stones were from the crenellations, and that it'll tie the whole thing in together. And you can. Perfect. The new door is not in, but you can kind of see that
but we'll
it's going to be this beautiful.
We won't have to go
tall,
sneaking in the side anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Next one.
So that was the youth center. Any other questions about the youth
No,
center?
I think there's a great update on it.
Yeah, it's an exciting project, and so we're hoping for to transition in March, transition the youth center back in March, and have a grand opening sometime in April or May.
Cool. Beginning of next year.
It would
we'll
be great.
Up and running.
Yes.
Okay. Now let's talk about the pond.
Okay, let's talk about the pond.
I think we have a slide that shows the pond. That's not the pond. There's the pond.
So Milford Pond is a project we're doing with the Army Corps of Engineers. $6 million to dredge the pond.
Explain to people where Milford. You don't know how many people have said. You mean on the other side of Dilla Street? No, that's Louisa Lake.
Right.
I don't think people know how big Milford Pond really is.
Oh yeah, it's a very large pond. It's between the bridge that is near the pool down at Pheno Field. That bridge goes over the dam. So that's the lower end of the pond, and it goes all the way up to Dilla Street where the water company is.
So it's a lot of area.
And then it's bound by Cedar Street on the other side and Sumner Street on the other side. or the bike path, basically.
So how much of that is getting dredged? Because you're not dredging the whole thing.
No, so we dredged about 17 acres of the pond, but it was through the pond is also the Charles River. A lot of people don't know that. So the channel where the Charles cuts through, that was primarily where we did the dredging. And when we started, it was 2, 3, 4 feet deep at the deepest. Now it's 10 to 12 feet deep.
It's amazing because when we grew up, it was deep. You know,
Right.
when you start thinking that it's filled in, it just shows you how old I am. To 2 to 3 feet, that's a swamp. It doesn't feel like a pond anymore.
Right, right. And a lot of it was from the vegetation. So over the years, it would fall down to the bottom and decay and build up. The roots that we found on those pond lilies were amazing. They were like as big as your arm.
Wow.
It was pretty incredible.
So now they go in and they dredge it. Where do they put it?
That's a good question. So our plan was to put the soil in a replication area and make a new wetland area on the north side of the pond, so up towards the water company. So they started last February while the ice was still out, and they installed these core logs that would basically form the boundary of the disposal area and keep the soils in. These, over time, these will biodegrade, and in a few years you won't see them at all. So if we go to the next picture, this is a picture of the dredges that they used. They had 2 dredging machines going for most of the project. They ended up dredging just under about 200,000 cubic yards of material.
Now the dredges, just a big scooper?
It's kind of like a big drill, and then it sucks up the sediment, and the orange buoy thing that you see there, that is the discharge pipe. The discharge pipe was fabricated on site. It was heat welded, and it went from that end of the pond all the way to the other end of the pond where it discharged.
So they're just extruding it.
Basically,
they're just pushing
yes.
it through.
Yep.
Well, that's got to be a lot more efficient than trying to truck it.
Absolutely. A lot more cost efficient and a lot faster.
So I'm sucking it up, I'm grinding it, kind of stuffing it down the tube. Mm-hmm. Now the people on the north end, where you're putting all this wonderful material, does it hurt them?
Well, there really aren't any homes exactly where it is.
It's the water company.
It's near the water company. It's near Rosenfeld Park and Plains Park.
Okay. That makes sense, because I was thinking, you're going to put all that, I won't call it poop, but all that organic material, when it decays.
Well, it's not. It's soil though.
Oh, okay.
That we moved. So it's the there was some organic plant material, obviously, that got ground up in the process, but most of it was soil, rock. They ran into ledge in a few places, not surprisingly, but so most of it is soil. It was the consistency of a slurry. Mm-hmm. So over time it will settle and consolidate. It will not form, pretty little islands like the pictures that we had necessarily, because we can't really control how it settles and consolidates. Typically the lighter materials will get pushed up to the surface, and the heavier materials will
You're not going to shape
settle.
them up like the islands they made in Dubai, out in the middle of the Gulf?
No, that wasn't in the budget.
Okay, next one.
So this is a picture of where the restoration area is, and you can see even there the water was not that deep to start with. So we filled about 33 acres of land. So
how thick, when this all settles out, you're putting all this stuff inside the holder, the retaining wall. When all is said and done, how much deeper or how thick is that layer that you created going to be?
Probably only a few feet. That's why it's
Oh.
so many more acres of replication area versus the acres of dredging.
So it's 17 acres of dredging, but 33 of
Right.
replication. Okay.
Right. So Scotty and I went out in the boat a couple times and looked at how things were going, and you could see that there were sort of natural channels forming, and so our hope is that it will become just a very nice natural wetland area.
Okay.
The water will be shallow, but it won't be very deep there, but there won't really probably
Well,
be
it's not like you can go
noticeable
swimming in
high
that
points.
area.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Okay.
And our plan for the future is to wait a couple years and see what kind of vegetation naturally grows there, and then plant some white cedars.
Nice.
So bring it back to being an old cedar swamp.
Cool. Okay, next.
And these are just a couple of before and after pictures, so you can see on the left how shallow the water is, and this is obviously a different time of year, but it's nice and clean and deep. You can tell.
You don't see the weeds.
You don't see the weeds. Yeah.
Okay.
And the next slide shows a similar picture from the boat ramp. So the boat ramp is open for anyone who cares. It's been closed for
It's cold. I don't think I'm going out on a...
but
I'll wait till spring. The boat ramp is open. Bring very thick, warm coat.
people were actually very supportive of this project. I got very few complaints. Only a couple of people called to complain about not being able to use the pond this summer. So it was nice. It was good that we got so much support.
Cool.
So, and the last group of pictures I have here is for the culvert.
My favorite project. It's like the gift that keeps on giving.
Well, it will be. It will be now. But so we
Not
started.
in our lifetime, Vonnie. I don't think we'll ever see the Godfrey and all the Brooks
Not the whole
finished.
thing. Not
Right.
the whole thing. No.
Say that's going to go on forever.
But the goal for this project, so this project is partially funded by a FEMA grant because we were able to demonstrate that the downtown area had serious flooding issues. Anything over about the 25-year storm, it would flood. So the new project, the new culverts will provide extra storage as well as better flow so that it will hopefully reduce a lot of the flooding issues that we're seeing. You can see, so on the left, this is on Main Street, on the south side of Main Street, between the auto parts store and 340 Main Street. This is what the culvert looked like before, once we removed all the trees and things that were growing in it. And the contractor literally had to use these braces because the walls were just ready
Falling
to fall
in.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, but at least you had walls. I mean, how many parts of the Godfrey Brook were those stones?
Yes, well, there's still a lot of that.
You can't brace one rock.
Right. Right, so this was replaced, sometime in the last 100 years. But no, it was definitely in pretty rough shape. So if we go to the next picture, this is looking from the other direction at the same thing. So these culverts are 2 9 feet by 4 feet culverts. And then we had to do some poured in place concrete for the end sections where it transitions back to the old brook. But it transitions very nicely, so it's not abrupt. And this is the finished product. The concrete company that did the work on this project, they did some beautiful work.
Well, I don't think anybody questions the Main Street, Congress Terrace, that culvert. I think the thing that always comes up is when they look at the brooks themselves and they say, well, who owns the brooks? I mean, technically, we don't own them, do we? They're the homeowners.
The town of Milford does not own the brooks. Every person who has a brook in their backyard owns a part of the
They
brook.
have the 50 feet
Right.
that they share with their neighbor.
Right.
And I mean, that's a hard thing because the town, we're doing it because they're residents, I mean, I can't imagine you'd go to somebody and say, okay, you know your $300,000 home? Yeah, you got a $250,000 Brook bill.
Right.
You'd ruin people. But on the other hand, I think people have to be sensitive to having a beautiful brook with elevated steps, and that's just not going to, that dog just isn't going to hunt, because we're not going to have money for
No.
that.
And realistically, not all sections of the brook have problems. Parts of, especially up in the Fountain Street area where it all starts, that it's a small brook at that point. And so there was a report done in about 2007 that identified 5 or 6 priority areas of the brook where they were bottlenecks, basically, that were creating the problems. And we've done a lot of work already. And when Mike was here, they did that big diversion channel, which helped. And
Well, I remember when we had the problem at West Street, and I asked a fundamental question, I said, is this really emergency? Or is it just kind of, hey, we'd like to do it, so we're going to call it? And Bill Buckley said, come visit. And I went over to West Street, and I saw that the wall of the brook had eroded to within like 3 feet of somebody's house. I have no idea who lived there, but I saw 3 feet. I said, my God, one good storm,
right.
and the house is gone.
Well, actually, if you go to the next slide, on the other side of Main Street, so the white house is Isabel's, you can see that the channel was the foundation of that house.
The cement of the house was...
Yes, the side of the brook. So, it was a safety issue.
And that's a
to
scary
fix
movie,
that.
because it's only a matter of time before water is going to start seeping under that foundation.
Correct. Yeah. So this is the other side of Main Street where we fixed it, and if you want to go to the next slide, we can see. So this is where Hospital Brook comes in to Godfrey Brook, and the two merge right next to Isabel's, and so this is the new.
And for people who don't know, Hospital Brook runs from the Heights, the Casey Pool, down to Main Street. It's the little
Right.
baby brook.
Exactly. Yep. So you can see that the culverts go well into the yard now where they didn't before, and the flow is not next to that house anymore. It's all been backfilled and
Diverted
now it's
so it's safe.
protected. Yes.
I mean, that's got to be worrisome if you're living in the house, knowing that your foundation is the wall of a brook.
Right.
Okay.
So, but again, what you said about this benefiting the whole town, it's absolutely true. I mean, if Main Street flooded and we had to shut it down and people had to find alternate routes, if the old culvert had collapsed, it could have inconvenienced a lot of people, and it could have been a real safety issue.
Well, but I mean, there's certain things we do just because it's our town. When you see $250,000 for a culvert, you can't lay that on a homeowner.
Right.
It would destroy. I mean, you save your whole life, you got equity in your house, and they say, oh, just kidding. You're going to have to sell the house to pay for the culvert that now you can't live in anymore. Okay.
Okay. And these are just some after pictures once we cleaned up. So this project is substantially complete right now. We have to have the contractor come back in the spring and do some landscaping and some finishing up kind of stuff, punch list. But it is mostly complete at this point. The next slide should be Congress Terrace. So this is the section in Congress Terrace where the culvert was actually underground. So at Congress Terrace, the culvert goes underground.
This is the hard one to explain to people because they say, there's no brook there.
Right. There is. It's just, you just can't see it. And in this particular yard, the culvert was collapsing and there was a sinkhole forming in the yard. It was a very dangerous situation. So this new culvert is 2 10 feet by 3 feet culverts. They are buried again, so the yard will actually go back to being a usable yard. And this wall that you see in the left-hand picture is now gone, and they're going to be replacing that with a nice poured-in-place stamped concrete wall. And the homeowners will also get some new trees in their backyard, and some all of the homeowners whose yards that we had to go into got, fences replaced or new trees.
Well, they must be tickled pink.
I hope so. I hope they've been pleased with how the project went.
Well, I mean, the fact that you're fixing the culvert and you're under no obligation to. I mean, a lot of towns would just stop there and just say, you want trees? And Western Nursery's up the street. So, the fact that you're doing the landscaping and the trees has got, I mean, if that was my house, I'd be tickled pink. I don't have to pay for it.
Well, the people, especially Congress Terrace, they, it was an inconvenience for them. They were very good during the project. The contractor that we got, Polito, did a fantastic job of keeping the residents happy and working with them.
Well, having your backyard collapse into a sinkhole, I would think, would be a more worrisome inconvenience.
That would definitely be a bad situation. If you go to the next slide, this is just a shot of them. So at Congress Terrace, we had to actually lower the culvert from where it was previously to get under the other utilities. So there's about a 7-foot drop. There's actually a nice little waterfall there now. But this is some of the concrete work that they had to do to make that transition happen.
Okay.
And the next one is this is the finished.
Here's how it looks now. Nice.
It's underground, and
it's gone.
It's gone.
From memory again for next 100 years.
Exactly. So those are, and here you go. There's the drop and the
there's
little
the waterfall.
There's the waterfall.
We now have a Milford waterfall. I don't think you can go stand under it, but we have
No, you probably don't want to.
So now, we're hearing about new projects coming up. Fisk Mill Bridge.
Yes.
Do most people even know there's a bridge in Fisk Mill?
I don't know. It's not much of a bridge. It
wasn't much of a dam till it failed. The Fisk Mill Dam a few years ago, except for the people around that, I guess, little pond. I mean, they knew right away when the dam failed because all the water went away.
Right.
But where is the Fisk Mill Bridge?
So the bridge is right on the Milford-Upton Town line. So just before you get to the gun club, where the main building is, and the turnoff where you can go and sit by the pond, there's a culvert, and it's basically a culvert crossing. But
and we're very happy they didn't build it 8 feet more to the Milford side, or we'd own the whole thing.
Well, yes.
I mean, sorry, Upton, but I'm glad you own half of it.
So we are working with the town of Upton right now. We're working out the details right now, but we're going to do a preliminary study this winter to get a handle on what else will need to be done. There are some Mass DOT hoops that we have to jump through in terms of doing an analysis on alternatives.
Well, I mean, you're going to have
and that
to
kind
meet
of thing.
code. At the end of the day,
Well, absolutely meet code, but we have to do an alternatives analysis, and we have to. They have a checklist.
but
of
that's what I mean
things.
by the code. They have their steps that you're going to have to check every box.
Right. So we're getting sort of the preliminary work done this winter, and then our hope is to go to town meeting, get money for design, and then once we do design, we'll have a better idea of what the construction will really cost.
But that's got to be up in that $1 million range.
It could be. We're hoping that the abutments are sound and that we'll just have to replace the bridge deck.
That would be nice.
But at this point, we're not sure.
The only good news is we cut it in half.
The good news is we cut it in half. We're going to be sharing the cost with 50-50 with Upton.
Now I'm hearing there used to be a way of getting to Mellon Street from Milford.
There did.
And they just closed it. I mean,
I've heard that rumor too, but as long as I've been the town engineer, there hasn't been a through road there.
no, they just closed it. It's like, okay. Interesting. Is that the next big project, or is it Louisa Lake? What do you think is coming up?
We have another, it's not a big project, but we have another project coming up that has, I just got a grant from the state to do a treatment wetland that will help to clean the storm water before it goes into Milford Pond. And so we're getting about $250,000 from the state to help us do that.
How much is it going to cost it?
It's going to cost about $350, $375 total.
Oh, so they're paying more than half. That's good news.
Yes, yep. So that's pretty exciting. That will help us with our stormwater permitting as well. So all of the stormwater flow that comes down off the Fountain Street area flows down Dilla Street and into Huckleberry Brook and into Milford Pond. We're going to intercept some of that flow, send it through the wetland, and the plants in the wetland
We'll filter it out.
filter it out, remove the nitrogen and the phosphorus, and then it'll go into Milford Pond a little bit cleaner. So
That'll help.
that will definitely help. So that's one project that we have planned for the upcoming year.
And I'm hearing Louisa Lake. But I've been hearing that for years. The dam, the bridge, what's going on?
Well, the Dilla Street Bridge at Louisa Lake and the dam are two separate issues. Scotty has, I think, a pretty good handle on what needs to be done with the bridge. And I do know that that is on his list of things that he
Yes.
wants to take care of. The bridge is not in horrible condition, not as bad as the Fisk Mill Bridge, which has rusty rebar sticking out, but it definitely does need some repairs. The dam, we had a phase 1 and a phase 2 evaluation report done on the Louisa Lake Dam. Because we were forced to, we got a non-compliance order from the Office of Dam Safety. While they were conducting the work, the highway department went out and did some general maintenance and tested that there's a overflow valve there, tested the valve, and removed some of the vegetation that was encroaching on the dam. And we were able to get our condition rating changed. So changing our condition rating even slightly for the better helped us to get rid of that compliance order.
What do you say to people who say, why do we need the dam?
Well, if the dam wasn't there, the level in Louisa Lake would be a lot lower, for starters.
Yes, but, you know.
So you wouldn't have a lake.
Well, but there's the question. I mean, you just wouldn't have a lake. You'd have swampland.
Right.
Okay. Because, you know, a lot of people
Because
say,
I think people enjoy the fact that there's a lake there.
and that's really it. Without the dam, you have no lake.
Right.
You have swampland, which won't be really pleasing anyway.
Right. And I'm not sure how old that dam is. The dam at Milford Pond was built in the 1930s. That one probably was around the same time.
Pretty amazing that when you string wood across, it lasts that long.
Well, if it's submerged and it's not exposed to the air, then it won't rot.
Right,
So-
but it's still, you know, you think of Draper, you know, and things been there forever, but it's underwater. We had the problem when we were down in Baltimore, where when they did some work on the inner harbor, they lowered the water level. And now the top of the pilings that had been there forever, they got nervous because they were exposed to air.
Right.
And now they're going to rot like crazy.
Right. Yep.
Okay. So,
So Louisa Lake Dam is something we're still trying to get our arms around. We had a peer review done on the Phase 2 report. The peer review came back and said, well, now that things have changed with the Office of Dam Safety, we might be able to do more of a maintenance program and stretch it out over several years. So the cost dropped to about $280,000, and if we stretch it out over 4 or 5 years, it's definitely something that we can probably manage.
good. Anything else looming?
No, just that. Well, we have a couple of things on that we're trying to work out with Mass DOT. I went to Boston a couple of times last year and testified on behalf of Milford, and we are on the TIP, the funding list for 2019 to do some work on Route 16 up by the hospital, so the intersection of Route 16 and 140. We have a 25% design right now in hand.
What do we need to do there?
We're going to do some intersection improvements. It's a high crash incident
Oh, okay.
intersection, and with the fatal accident that we had last year, the state agreed that we should definitely look at changing some of the signaling, putting in some left turn designated
Oh, okay. 'Cause I was
lanes.
gonna say, you can't widen it anything there. You got houses and
We don't have much room to widen.
Right.
No, but we can do some general improvements.
Well, it sounds exciting, and
It
the
is.
next time we have you on, we'll talk about the infamous GIS system. That could be a talk all on its own.
Yes, that's its own discussion.
But we do thank you. I mean, it's amazing things like, Congress Terrace. There's no brook there. What are you spending money? Are you making a brook?
Right.
You never think about it. It's underground. Nobody thinks about it till it collapses.
Right.
So thank you for not making things collapse.
Right. If I don't get complaints, I know I'm doing my job.
There
So-
you go. So, and as always, there's so much going on in the town. There's so many services that we take for granted. You get up in the morning, and I expect when there's a snowstorm, I can drive because Scotty's out there. When we have,
And he's been up all night.
and he's
too.
been up all night.
Yeah.
We have water flowing, and it's got to flow somewhere because we did the culverts. We're very fortunate that we do have good people who care about the town taking care of us. So as always, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
To our 6 loyal viewers, thank you for watching. May tomorrow be a better day than today, and may God bless. Good night.
Not too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just